Great, thank you very much. Let me just share my screen. All right, can you see that?
Yep, we can see it.
Great, good. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you today about the Liveable Urban Waterway Programme in Cape Town. So it's great to be here. So my name is Andrew. I work at the City of Cape Town Municipality in their Water and Sanitation Department. And for the last few years, I've been leading the development and now the rollout of our Liveable Urban Waterway Programme. So just to set some context for you, Cape Town is a fairly large city of about 4.5 million people. It's on the far southwestern corner of the continent at the bottom of South Africa, surrounded by oceans, and we're very much a city of water. We have nearly 1,800 kilometers of rivers that flow through our municipal jurisdiction. We have about 560 kilometers of engineered canal and channel, nearly 900 stormwater ponds, 16,500 kilometers of pipe, stormwater pipe, typically buried under the roads that drain the city. And we have 11,000 hectares of wetland, which is very unique for municipalities in South Africa. And because of the significance of these wetlands, a couple of years ago, Cape Town was recognized as a Ramsar wetland city, the only one in South Africa, and I think perhaps the one of about 2 or 3 in the African continent. So quite a nice recognition for Cape Town regarding the importance of our wetlands. And these stormwater systems, whether they're natural or built, provide an incredibly important function for Cape Town. Many of these services that the systems provide underpin the very health and well-being of our city. But we have challenges, like all urban areas in South Africa and in Africa and perhaps even globally. Cities and towns are struggling with various issues when it comes to catchments, rivers, and stormwater. In particular is the devastating impacts of a changing climate. So we are very much at the forefront of the impacts of climate change, unpredictable rainfall, and more intense storms, shifting of weather patterns causes flooding. Cape Town is typically quite a flat city, very high water table, quite sandy, which means that communities can get quite wet even with minor storms. And unfortunately, it's usually the most vulnerable communities who are impacted the most. So climate change and in particular flooding is a very big challenge for us here in Cape Town. Many of our waterways are suffering from pollution, from litter, dumping, sewage contamination, a range of other contaminants from land uses, industry, and many of our waterways are in a really poor condition with regards to water quality. And again, that puts a significant risk on water users and on communities that rely on the water or who live next to these contaminated water bodies. And we have a long way to go to start to turn the situation around. Cape Town is actually one of the most biodiverse cities in the world. And our biodiversity is an incredibly important part of our city's urban fabric. But we are struggling with biodiversity loss. Many of our waterways have been converted into drains, canals, and channels, effectively ending the natural river function. And the pressures to develop in our city are increasing, and that puts additional pressure on our environmental assets and on particularly the ecosystems around our waterways. So that was just a quick summary of some of our challenges. So maybe a quick poll here. I don't know if I'll take this one slide off, but do you want to do a quick poll with them just to see if everyone's still awake? Do I need to stop sharing?
You don't need to stop sharing.
Okay.
Can you see it? Can you see the poll on my screen?
Yes, yeah.
Right, I think we have a good quorum.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, this is I think kind of reflective of many of the towns and cities across South Africa and the continent, and as I said, globally, rivers, particularly in our cities and towns, are typically in a poor state. And there's a lot of work for us collectively as authorities, but as civil society and private sector to do to try and turn the state of those around. Right. So off the back of the challenges that we face with our urban rivers in Cape Town, we decided to take a fundamental change in our approach. And that was really the start of our Liveable Urban Waterway Programme. The idea was coined in about 2020 during the city's preparation for its very first resilience strategy through the resilience strategy workshops. And from an idea that was discussed at a workshop, over the years, it's developed into a fully fledged and implemented program of work. And effectively, what it's about, it's a program for change, recognizing that the status quo is not sustainable, and we need to make some fundamental changes, which is looking to, at its very heart, systematically, proactively, and collaboratively rehabilitate the city's rivers and wetlands, but with a particular focus on using water-sensitive design approaches, green infrastructure, and nature-based solutions. So we defined at the very beginning what a livable urban waterway is, and that's the list of the 6 elements on the left of your screen. Each of these has a number of KPIs or indicators that we can track to see how we're progressing. And then similarly, we developed 8 guiding principles, which have been used to keep us on track effectively. We often reflect back against the principles to ensure that we are still adhering to them. Right at the beginning, we realized that to effect transformative change, we needed to tackle this from 3 fronts. And we developed a scaling strategy that would look at 3 particular elements. One is to scale on the policy side, to make the shifts and the adjustments in the policy agenda. One was to look at projects on the ground to actually develop and implement rehabilitation and climate adaptation projects in the catchments and in the waterways. And then thirdly, it was bringing people along, collaborating, partnering, and working with communities and other stakeholders so that they are part of the process. And all of our work generally in the last couple of years has been able to talk to one or more of these scaling fronts. All of this is documented and laid out in our implementation framework, which is just actually beginning of this year gone through a revision, which is effectively our blueprint for how the program is unfolding. And in the implementation framework, we have our 5 work streams. And my role as the program lead is to kind of coordinate across all 5 of these work streams. So on the policy scaling side, we spent a lot of the first few years really getting the program embedded into policy documents. So in particular, our various city strategies, starting with the resilience strategy. Since then, we've also got explicit reference in the climate change strategy and action plan, the city's environment strategy, its local biodiversity strategy and action plan, and our water strategy. We've also done a lot of work to get ourselves in our integrated development plan, which is a statutory planning tool that all municipalities in South Africa must have, council-approved planning tool, and we are directly mentioned in that IDP. And then we've got ourselves mentioned in a number of policy documents and strategic plans, which is very important because having these hooks in these policy and strategic planning documents provides you with an opportunity to secure resources and budget to take your program and projects forward. On the project side, the scaling on the project side, we focused our projects initially in one catchment, in the Sand River catchment, where we have now 6 projects up and running. And what we tried to do here is identify and develop these projects in such a way that they can work collectively with each other. The way rivers work, a river flows from upstream into a middle reach, from there downstream, and ultimately to wherever it outfalls to. In this case, the coastal lake at the south of the catchment, Zandvlei. And we decided to fix the health of the catchment and the health of Zandvlei. One would need to take a strategic approach across many of the river systems and their tributaries in the catchment. So we packaged our first batch of projects in that way, so that we can demonstrate catchment scale thinking, systems thinking, and hopefully get cumulative benefit from a number of interventions in a catchment system. So we've done a lot of work to develop these projects. As I said, we have 6 in the Sand River catchment and a further 2 in another catchment, so 8 in total. We've managed to mobilize nearly 200 million rand of committed budget, which the municipality is financing. When we finished these 8 projects, we would have rehabilitated over 13 kilometers of river, and rehabilitated or created about 8 hectares of new wetland. And we've done this in collaboration with stakeholders. We've had a number of stakeholder meetings, workshops, co-design engagements, and to date we've reached well over 800 stakeholders just for these 8 projects. And this is just a screenshot of some of the project spaces. I won't go into the detail for all of them, but effectively the projects are rehabilitating the river corridors, removing invasive plants, fixing erosion, opening up the river, re-meandering it, widening it, putting in floodplain wetlands, and importantly, putting in social infrastructure around the wetland and river spaces so that people can link with the waterway and can connect with the waterway in a positive way. We've done a lot of work to try and build our long-term project portfolio, so we can build on the 8 projects we have currently underway, and through some support from the C40 City Finance Facility, we've managed to develop a master plan of projects in a number of other catchments, quantifying the financing and the budgeting that we need, coming up with some early stage concept designs, so that we are starting to prepare ourselves for developing a longer term portfolio of projects. At the heart of what we're trying to do is design with nature. We've over-engineered our stormwater systems, and we need to move away from that if we want to build resilience and sustainability into our catchments. And no more is this shown than the South Langevlei project, which has got money approved for implementation next year. Here we're going to actually knock down 2 canals, nearly or just over half a kilometer of canal will be removed, and we will put in a natural river. We're going to renaturalize the stream like it was before the canals were put in the early 1950s. We're going to create about 8,500 square meters of new wetland. We're going to plant over 100,000 new plants, all of them locally indigenous. We're going to daylight stormwater pipes. We're going to put in seating, benches, lighting, signage, walkways, better litter and silt management facilities, effectively repurpose this whole space to create a nature-based solution that can provide not only environmental benefits, but also socio-economic benefits as well. And here are a couple of architect renderings of what the space might look like. If you ever do come to Cape Town and you manage to see the space now, the vision for the space is very different. It's going to be a completely redesigned and constructed wetland system. We're going to be taking down the river, the canals, and opening it up into a natural river system where we can, as well as putting in, as I said, much needed seating and lighting and spaces for the communities to interact with the water. We've done a lot to try and quantify benefits of this work. Again, this is part of the advocacy, building a case. And we've obviously aligned all of this work to our program's monitoring and evaluation framework, so that we are doing this in a structured way that can be replicated across all of our projects as the program rolls out. And in particular, we've worked quite closely recently through the C40 CFF with the International Institute of Sustainable Development to put a financial case together, actually quantifying benefits in financial terms. And we've we're using this as a tool to motivate and mobilize resources for the rollout of the work. And the headline figure for us really is that for every R1 we can invest in our waterway rehabilitation projects, we could get up to R2.50 of return, which is both direct benefit to the municipality, but also indirect benefit for society and the economy. Right, next poll, please.
Andrew, before we move to the next poll, there are a couple of questions in the chat. Do you want to address them now?
Yeah, please go for it.
Sure.
Do you want me to?
So
I can't see the chat, so you're going to have to read them.
I can read them for you.
Thank you.
From Paika, there is a question around did the city take into account South Africa's national adaptation plan in implementing your project? Is it aligned with national level climate planning?
Yeah, so absolutely. So what we do at a city level is very much aligned upwards to what we do provincially. So we within the Western Cape province, who also have a water strategy and a biodiversity strategy and a climate change strategy. And that itself aligns to the national strategies on things like climate adaptation, biodiversity, and the like. So we very much aligned, and we will be very locally contributing to the national agenda.
Wonderful. And speaking of those strategies, you mentioned that where the Liveable Urban Waterways project is embedded within them and also within the IDP. How did you manage that? Was a question we have from Tinka.
So that was really right at the beginning of the program. Before it was even a program, it was still just an idea. The advocacy, the influencing, and the lobbying started. And the key thing for me at that point was to identify a number of strategic, very influential senior officials. So the resilience director, the water director, the environment director, and a couple of strategic political allies. Once you start to get the idea in their minds that this is something good, then half your battle's won. So it was around advocacy in the beginning, lots of workshops, lots of meetings, lots of engagements, lots of coffee, just to convince decision makers that this is the right thing. And then through a process, they said, we support this, we endorse this. They included it in the very first strategy, which was the resilience strategy, and from then it just grew. So a lot of hard work in the beginning to advocate and lobby for the work, but once you're in with your first hook, then it becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah, I can definitely second that, and also Frank from his presentation also can second that. There was another question. You mentioned 800 stakeholders are involved in the implementation of the whole project. Are those within the city of Cape Town, or are you engaging other external stakeholders like community members, organizations, and so on?
Yeah, so those 800 are external stakeholders in the communities next to the project spaces. So we've held a number of workshops inviting community members, community groups, NGOs, local businesses to participate in the design process. So the 800 are exactly that. That 800 doesn't include the technical teams doing the design, for example. It's purely the communities who would benefit from the work.
That's wonderful. And how do you sustain, the communication with them after the design or the design sprint process? Do you still stay in touch with these particular community members and organizations?
Absolutely. So right at the beginning, we've developed a stakeholder engagement plan, which is a living document. It's kept up to date throughout the project lifecycle. We've also established, and I'll get to that a little bit later. In fact, the slide that you can see now, catchment management forums, which are platforms for collaboration in our different catchments. And through the catchment management forums, we continue to provide feedback and update, solicit information. In fact, I presented to the Sand River Catchment Forum just on Friday, where there were probably about 60 or 70 stakeholders who were interested in the projects, and I presented to them an update on the status of the work. So absolutely, we definitely continue to engage, and we will hope that that engagement can continue even when the projects are finished, and that the spaces are now active and are being looked after and maintained, that we will have both these relationships and we'll be able to sustain those relationships into the future. Yeah, very important part of the program is partnering and collaboration.
Wonderful. Thank you for those answers. Everyone, please continue to add your questions in the chat and we'll address them at the end of Andrew's presentation, but I can launch now the poll. So for this poll, we want to see if you have ever undertaken a cost-benefit analysis for your climate adaptation projects or programs, if you've calculated on any of the benefits and what that process might have looked like for you. If you want to expand, I see someone answered yes. Please also share it with us in the chat, the processes you're taking. All right, can you see the results, Andrew?
I can. And that's pretty similar to what we were experiencing here. It's previous to our work, our cost benefit work we've done for the program with the IISD, we had never done it before for waterway projects. And that was probably one of the reasons why we were finding it difficult to secure budget, because we were struggling to make a credible business case to the decision makers, many of which are not technical water people, they finance people. They sit on budget committees, they budget managers. And, if you were to say, well, tell us the benefits of your project, and you can't quantify it financially, cost savings, return on investment, value creation, risk reduction, they would struggle to prioritize your work. And we're hoping that our new approach to quantifying benefits through an integrated cost benefit approach will be able to unlock budget. And we're already seeing that with the 200 million of mobilized funding for our work that 10 years ago would just never have happened. So quite an important process I would encourage one to go through. It is quite daunting to start with, but if you partner with someone who can assist you, then it's actually not too complicated in the end. But definitely something I would encourage if you haven't thought about it already.
Wonderful. And at the end of your slides, you also have a report on that process, right?
Yes,
or a
absolutely.
link to that, so people can also, who don't know where to start, can also start looking at that. I'll add that in the chat.
Absolutely. No, there are links to all of our reports where they're publicly available, one of which is the cost benefit report. And it will quite clearly explain the methodology we followed, the data we required, and some of the findings from the analysis. Right. Okay, cool. Moving on. So onto the people scaling side, this for me has been probably some of the more rewarding work. Obviously, I'm a technical person. I've got a master's in hydrology. I've spent 25 years developing programs and technical projects. It's where my passion and interest lies. Technical people like us aren't usually trained at university on how to deal with the people side, right? So it's something that we either don't do or we don't do well enough. But we needed to change that, again, as part of LUW being a transformative program for change. Scaling on the people side was a critical element. And here we took a lot of effort, and we still do, to partner and to collaborate and to work collectively and collaboratively with stakeholders. So I mentioned the establishment of our catchment management forums. That's proving to be an incredibly important platform for collaboration. We've developed recently some guidelines on how one could establish a catchment forum and operate it, publicly available on our website. We've started exploring and developing partnerships with a range of stakeholders, many of which are doing some really good work in managing Cape Town's rivers already. But their impact is hyper-local. They don't have access to serious resources, and collaboration and sharing is not great. So we are, as a program, trying to provide that sort of umbrella service to bring all of these catchment stakeholders together as we collectively try and make our rivers better. So a lot of engagement and collaboration is already underway. We've also tried very hard to empower municipal officials in this, keeping them involved in the process. finding a space for them in the program, finding a space for them in each project, helping with training, knowledge exchanges, access to webinars and knowledge products, visiting other cities in South Africa who are doing some of this kind of work already, developing guidelines and tools so that our catchment stakeholders and officials can start to execute the Liveable Urban Waterway Programme with some assurance that they've got the tools that they can do the right thing. And we've also collaborated quite extensively with research organizations, in particular the University of Cape Town, the Future Water Institute, and the African Centre for Cities, and the African Climate Development Initiative. And recently, Sciences Po University in Paris was out here doing some exciting research, and we partnered with them. And we're always looking for partnerships with research institutions to help further the objectives of our program. So it's very much around the people side, bringing them on board and keeping them involved. So I've actually got a video. I'm going to, hopefully this works. I'm going to have to stop sharing this. Hold on a second. And I'm going to share, it's a quick video just to give you a flavor for what we've been doing in our co-design workshops. So for each project, we've held a co-design workshop where we've engaged with the communities and we've brought them on board to help co-design what they want out of the river rehabilitation project, drawing on their knowledge, their experiences, and where possible, utilizing the feedback from these sessions to inform the actual design. And that's so important because these are the communities that are the ones living next to the rivers, using the rivers. And in some cases, some of these community members have lived next to these rivers for decades, for generations. And it's a wonderful process that we went through for each project to bring some of their stories out. And hopefully we can adequately reflect some of that in the actual project designs. So this is a workshop we held about a year ago for the SAFE4ALL River project. And we managed to get some really good involvement from the communities there.
We are in Bridgetown today, where we are participating in a co-design process with our community members, looking at how we can improve our river infrastructure here in the Athlone area, our green infrastructure, but making sure that our residents, as you can see behind me, are part of the process and are the ones who actually decide what is happening in their particular area. So I'm so grateful to our teams who are driving our Liveable Urban Waterways Program within the city, and to all the teams and the members that have made today possible as well.
So the workshop has been very, very informative. It's also a great experience for me, as it's the first time I'm experiencing this workshop. So yeah, let's hope that we could put our vision into a reality.
Yeah, so that just gave you a very brief snippet of the engagements we've had. As I said, we've had about 5 of these co-design workshops now for our 8 projects. We have another one planned early next year. And as more and more projects come online, we will continue to roll out more co-design workshops to really provide an opportunity for communities to participate in the design of the space as we take projects forward. So, as I said earlier, we've produced a lot of reports, and some of them, not all of them, but some of them are available online. So if you navigate to these QR codes, you will get our compendium of case studies, which is, I think there's 10 or 11 case studies in there, showing where in Cape Town we already have really good rivers and waterways, and what makes them so special. How do they get to this point, so that we can be inspired for the next batch of rehabilitation projects. The cost benefit report done by the International Institute of Sustainable Development. That's available online. It's actually on the IISD website, and provides a really good background to how we approach the cost-benefit study and some of the findings. We've got a guideline on urban watercourses, which is around, it's aimed at landowners who have a river that flows through their land, what they can do to look after it, maintain it, and making sure that they align to regulations and best practices. And then, as I said earlier, we have our guidelines for the establishment of catchment management forums. And as the program grows, and we will start to develop more tools, more knowledge products, and we will add those to our website in the coming months and years. Right, just to finish off, the last poll.
All right, everyone. So if you've been paying attention, you should be able to answer this question easily. But what are the three main elements of the Liveable Urban Waterway Program scaling strategy? All right, can you see the results, Andrew?
Yes, yeah, no, absolutely. So policy, people, and projects, those were the three core elements of our scaling strategy. So most people got that right. Excellent. Well, that's me done. Thank you so much for the opportunity once again. I hope you found it useful. Fitzim, you've got the slide deck, so please share it with colleagues, and you can share my contact details as well. So if anyone wants to connect with me afterwards, you're more than welcome, and I'm happy to help you out where I can.